My ex wrote me an email I discovered 4 years later. I've had my Gmail account since I was a sophomore in high school, so over 10 years. It recently informed me that my inbox was completely full, so I went through and deleted emails, but made sure to review them to see if any were considered important. While doing this, I noticed an unopened email from my ex-boyfriend that was sent to me a few months after he broke up with me 4 years ago. The breakup was messy. He ended things because he was too busy for me and had to pick something to let go, which affected me mentally. A week later, he had a new girlfriend, so if I had seen that email back then, I would have lost my mind because it took me a long time to get over that. The email starts with him explaining his side and stating that he believed the breakup was something we both wanted. He went on to say that he started talking to his girlfriend a few months before he ended things with me due to loneliness and had no clue he would develop feelings for her, so he broke up with me to be with her. I never knew this was the reason he ended things. He then went on to ask why I did not talk to him anymore, expressed that he was hurt I did not reach out to him for his birthday, and questioned why I was not handling this well because he thought I was okay with us breaking up. We were together for 3 years before he ended things. He concluded the email by asking if we could talk soon about us and stated that he wanted us to be civil and for me to accept changes but not forget my best friend. That part really would have affected me if I had read it months after he ended things. Obviously, I am not going to respond, and I have no feelings for him whatsoever, nor do I have any idea what he is up to. However, I do find it amusing that he sent this email months after the breakup, and I never saw it until now. I have no clue how I missed it, but I am glad I never saw it. As far as I know, he is still with that girl. My friend told me he is cheating due to appearance of his fiancée's genitalia. The other day, a close male friend told me he was sending his fiancée on an expensive solo paid vacation. I inquired why he wasn't going with her, and he revealed he had his own hotel booked with the sole intention of cheating unfaithfulness. He explained that her genitalia is offensive and disgusting to him, and he needs to perform oral sex to fulfill himself, insisting it's a fundamental requirement for his existence. He told me he must perform oral sex to be fulfilled in life, and it's just has to. I asked why he wasn't just being honest with her, and he responded that it would crush her. I said if oral sex is that important to you, then you guys need to break up. He refused to break up, saying he loved her and they had built a life together, and he wouldn't have anyone to help with his daughter. He's adamant about not getting caught unless I say something to her fiancé. I asked about lights out, blindfolds, etc., and he absolutely refused, claiming her stuff is beyond disgusting. I feel deeply unsettled by this. He's not a prize in any way without him paying for the privilege. I don't see a random woman near him just randomly accepting oral sex from him. It's definitely put me in a weird situation because I'm friends with both of them. I don't want to get involved, but this is really awful for him to do. It has completely altered how I view him. I never would have thought him capable of something like this. Just needed to get this out of my mind. I feel so bad for her. I quit my nanny job, and I can't bring myself to tell the mom why. I feel like I can't talk to anyone about this. I can't think about it without crying. I don't know how to deal with any of it. I had a job looking after the child of a family friend. The child isn't a baby, but they're still pretty young. I was originally supposed to work as their nanny until the child was old enough to go to school. My mom knows the kid's aunt, and I've babysat for the aunt before, which is how I ended up getting the job. The dad has a job that allows him to WFH, but most of the time he is stuck in his office all day, so I really only ever saw him in passing. If I spent any significant period of time with him, the mom was always there. He never gave me a reason to be afraid of him. I didn't really think anything of being alone with him in the house with the little one all day. The few times he came out of his office to handle the naptime routine or to play for a little while, we didn't really talk much. I feel like I'm over-explaining myself. I don't know. A few weeks ago, the little one fell asleep in the living room just before I was going to put them down for a nap. I decided to just get them comfy on the couch and work on one of my midterms. The dad came out of his office at one point and sat down near me. It was fine at first. He was reading a book. I was typing on my computer, and even though the silence felt a little uncomfortable, it wasn't really bad or anything. I don't want to be specific about what happened, but he pushed me down on the floor, and I didn't do anything to stop him. I just froze. I said no a few times, but I couldn't make myself run or fight or do anything else. I just couldn't stop thinking about the fact that his child was sleeping 4 feet away from us. I thought about how scared they would probably be to wake up and see their dad hurting me like that, so I didn't say anything else. When it was over, I called the mom. I said I had a family emergency and needed to leave early. I didn't tell her the truth. I didn't say anything to the dad. I left. I feel guilty for just walking out like that. I haven't gone back. I haven't answered any of her calls. My mom is kind of mad at me for quitting in such a rude way, but I don't know how to tell her or anyone about this. I don't know how to deal with it. I'm either crying or feeling nothing, and it's making me feel crazy. Every time I think about it, I feel like I can't breathe. None of this feels real, but it also feels very real at the same time. I'm sorry if nothing here makes sense. I needed to just get it out, and I can't make my brain work properly enough to be coherent. I got the last laugh today against my brother and his wife. During the 2009 housing crash, I purchased a 4-bedroom home for $350K in Newport Beach. It's now valued at $1.75 million. I let my brother and his wife move in, and they pay enough rent so I make a bit of money and the mortgage is covered. I could rent it for $7,000 a month but charge them $2,500. I mostly did it for my 3 nephews. They go to a good school and live in a very good area. Plus, I get to see them a lot. I do not get along with my sister-in-law. Recently, she and I got into an argument about moving in her sister and husband. I said absolutely not. I'm already subsidizing your rent, and I'm not going to subsidize your families too. My brother and sister-in-law did sign a lease with general language about needing my approval to move in another tenant. My sister-in-law has never thanked me for letting them live there despite her being the one who benefits the most. She doesn't even have to work because of the rent that I charged. Well, my brother sided with her, so I said I'm going to screw both of you up. I changed my estate plan from leaving my brother my house if I died to mandating that the house be put up for sale and having the profits be split between my 3 nephews. My brother was pissed and asked me why I did that. I said to make sure that your wife never ever gets my house. If I die, then you get it. Then if you die, then your wife gets it. Over my dead body. I'm not attached to the house. I can't live with myself if there was even a 1% chance that some ungrateful person gets my house like she won the lottery. So now they're uncomfortable. Their housing is not as stable as they thought, but they can't afford to rent or buy a house either. I had the most embarrassing sleepover with a guy, and I still can't live it down. Yesterday, someone spent the night with me. We were cuddling, really warm, and I said I needed to go to bed. I remember saying to him I need to go to wee before I sleep, but I must have drifted off accidentally around 8 a.m. I woke up soaked. It was unbelievably awful. I spent 10 minutes panicking about how to hide it, and he was incredibly understanding and supportive. He helped me wash the sheets and change the bedding. We then slept for a few hours before he reassured me it was just a couple of months ago, and he said it happens only occasionally. But honestly, I'm mortified. It feels like he's still angry about it somehow. I can't help but feel like he's mad at me, even though he's been incredibly reassuring. I've spent the last few days obsessively replaying everything and trying to rationalize it. It was a mistake, a stupid, awful mistake. It feels impossible to explain to my friends. I can't help but feel like he's judging me, and I don't know how to stop feeling this way. It's consuming me. I asked my girl to marry me in December, but today I became aware she was cheating since last September. Me 39M and my fiancé 31F have been together for 10 years. I was feeling something was wrong and decided to look her cell. Ow man, I wish I could wake up from a shit nightmare. Just found conversations and photos of a few days ago. She usually erases everything else, but even then there was the proof of her betrayal. My heart is beating like hell, a painful knot in the stomach. Panic was the feeling. I called her and asked her to come to my home. When she arrives, I just ask, "Are you cheating?" At first, she denied, of course, but when I brought the name of the AF partner, she started to tell some truth as she was seeing him sporadically since last September. He was an old friend and they didn't saw each other for years. They met again in August, which she didn't tell me, and started messaging each other. And in September they had slept together. He travels a lot, so I know they didn't see each other every day, but they were talking every day. After the exposure, she cried and begged a lot for reconciliation, and we have had a hard conversation where she answered all my questions. I feel like shit. The dude is a loser, ugly, and broke. She can't explain why she was doing it with him. I am a successful lawyer, and I am used to pay for almost everything, including her job at my firm. I'm building a house the way she wanted. After I confronted her, I took back the ring I proposed her and also a small gold wristband with a gold heart. Told her the marriage was canceled and she was no longer my fiancé. Now she is panicking and begging again for reconciliation, offered to go to therapy, alone and couple. She gave me track of her location and access to her social medias, but I just can't feel anything but disgust for her. My brain tells me to expose her to everyone and erase her from my life, but my heart is in doubt. Yes, I do love her, as dumb as it sounds. I don't know what to do. She says she regrets the pain she inflicted me and swear we can rebuild the relationship and the broken trust. I don't know what to do, guys. Is there a way to fix it? Or I'm just fooling myself? When my sister died, I knew she'd committed suicide but kept it from my family. My sister passed away on Thanksgiving Day of 2023. She overdosed in the bathtub at our cousin's house, slipped under the water and drowned. Gone just like that. She had been an addict in recovery for around 6 months at the time. She was clean for the longest she had been in years. She met a guy in her recovery group and they dated for a few months. She became pregnant. She told my mother she did not feel like he was very excited about the baby and was worried he would leave her to raise the child on her own. Then Thanksgiving Day arrived. She got fentanyl from someone, went into the bathroom, overdosed in the bathtub, and drowned. She had previously used fentanyl, overdosed many times on different substances, and had to be revived with naloxone multiple times. So she knew the risks of using it for the first time in 6 months, especially in the bathtub. She always loved drawing and writing poetry to express her feelings. When I went to gather her belongings, I found a notebook with a drawing of a woman with her head underwater on the very last page. I think she planned it, that it was suicide. She had also written a pessimistic poem that really showed how disillusioned she was. But I vehemently denied it was intentional when speaking to my mother. I convinced her that my sister had just had a moment of weakness and succumbed to her addiction, that she had gone into the bathroom to avoid anyone noticing. But I know the truth. She took her own life. She planned it and followed through. It has been over a year now, and I still have not told anyone about the poem or the drawing. Most of my family is Christian, and if my mother knew my sister had taken her own life, she would be convinced that her baby is in hell. I cannot let her live with that thought, so I am going to keep this to myself. But I needed a place to finally let this out. It has been weighing on me a lot lately. No matter how her life ended, she lived as a compassionate and kind person. She was the awkwardly social type who would make a joke at her own expense just to make others comfortable. She was amazing. Rest in peace, big sister. You are sorely missed. TIFU, entire class decided to write letters to a prisoner. This happened a long time ago when I was 16. Our school participated in the International Baccalaureate program, which allowed us to take intense classes and finish high school with a lot of college credits. Even if you did not complete the entire program, the courses were great college preparation. During my junior year of high school, I decided to take International Baccalaureate French I, which was completely immersive. Our teacher required us to answer everything in French. Want to go to the restroom? Ask in French. Have a question about the homework? Ask in French. She assigned the entire first chapter on the first day of class, due the next day, every exercise from beginning to end. It was 20 pages. The class originally had 20 students signed up, but after that assignment, only 5 of us remained. With only students willing to put in the work left, our teacher worked hard to give us a well-rounded education in French. We read French novels, watched French television, and discussed French history and politics. Keep in mind this was the late 1990s, so the internet was not readily available. I also lived in Central Appalachia, so just having this program was an amazing opportunity, but our resources were limited. She went above and beyond to give us work that was both challenging and interesting. I remember reading Asterix and Obelix comic books in French, and I once had a scavenger hunt around my school following French instructions. Needless to say, our teacher was always looking for creative ways to improve our French skills. One day, she had us reading a French magazine for translation. I believe it was Le Monde. And in the middle of class, she told us she had a great idea. While we were working, she had been looking at the classified section of the paper, just out of curiosity, to see what was being sold and who was interested in what topics. Among the want ads, she found an advertisement from a Frenchman in a maximum security prison in Colorado, looking for someone to correspond with in French. His name was Maxim, and the ad included an address for writing to him. Wouldn't that be a great way to sharpen our French and writing skills? Here is where the 5 of us made our first mistake. We all immediately got out our paper and began writing to Maxim, no questions asked. Now, we were not completely reckless. We did not include our full names or addresses, but we mailed the letters from our school. Admittedly, that was not much of a cover since we were from a very rural area and would be easy to locate. In our letters, we introduced ourselves, described our lives, and talked about our families. Everything you would typically include in a first letter to a stranger. Do you know what we did not do? We did not stop to consider that a man in prison, with the ability to place an ad in Le Monde, might be a serious criminal. At first, though, he did not seem that way. Maxim's first letter back was full of gratitude. He wrote that our teacher was an angel and that our letters were a bright spot in his otherwise dark existence. He shared how lonely it had been without opportunities to interact in his native language. He eagerly looked forward to our correspondence. So, our little pen-pal arrangement continued, until Maxim decided we needed to hear his tragic tale of woe. Keep in mind, we were high school students, so our translation skills were not professional. But what I remember from his letter went something like this. Maxim claimed he was just a simple man who had come to America to achieve the American dream. He started a business exporting leather goods, but found that he needed connections to get his inventory into the country. Enter a partner, who assured him he could get his cargo through customs without delay. According to Maxim, he had no idea that this partner was running drugs. How could he have known? It was not until his business was raided that he discovered all the money he had been receiving was laundered through his export business. At least, that was what the FBI explained when they arrested him. At that point, our French class faced a dilemma. We had been corresponding with this man without ever questioning why he was in a maximum security prison in Colorado. Still, we had not expected to find ourselves writing to someone involved in organized crime. None of us wanted to continue the correspondence. Luckily, the school year was ending, and we all agreed it would be best to quietly forget about Maxim. We also never told anyone, not out of some sense of solidarity, but simply because it never crossed our minds that our parents needed to know. Our teacher knew. Who else needed to? Then our senior year started. Our international baccalaureate French teacher walked into class and asked which one of us had told Maxim about her birthday. Blank stares all around. None of us knew her birthday. She told us that Maxim had sent her a birthday card to her home address. We did not know that information either. Since our tiny Appalachian town did not have extensive internet access, but apparently his prison did, this was deeply unsettling. The only logical conclusion was that he had found her address through some means of his own. From that point on, we cut off all contact with Maxim. For the rest of the year, we dreaded the thought that he might be able to track down where we lived. Today, I teach at the same school, alongside the very same French teacher. We both marvel at the fact that she assigned us to write to an unknown prisoner without any real concern for our safety, and that we, as students, followed through with the letters without questioning it or telling anyone. The lesson I learned: just because a teacher assigns something does not mean you should not think about the unintended consequences. By sleeping with my girlfriend, got blackmailed into marriage, and had the worst honeymoon of my life. I, now 26-year-old male, come from a Middle Eastern country where premarital sex is a huge issue. If you get caught, it could literally mean death. That does not mean people do not engage in it, but because of the cultural obsession with virginity, almost all encounters are through an alternative method, so it does not count. Yes, I know. It is insane. A couple of years ago, I met this beautiful girl, then 26-year-old female, online. We hit it off right away, had a lot in common, and after a couple of weeks of talking, she asked me out. Things were great. We made it official, went on dates, and any chance we got, we fooled around, always taking the loophole route, of course. But we both really wanted to go all the way. The problem: in my culture, once a woman loses her virginity, she is locked in. Either we get married or she has to undergo an actual surgery to restore it. I was not ready for marriage, and I did not want to trap her in that situation, so I kept saying no. She kept pushing, begging, telling me she did not care. She just wanted me to be the first. I still resisted until one morning when she came over to my apartment super early, woke me up in a way I could not resist, and I gave in. We did it. Biggest mistake of my life. That day changed everything. Suddenly, she became extremely controlling, picking fights over the most trivial things. Me seeing friends, visiting family, or doing anything that did not involve her became a problem. I tolerated it for a while, but after a few months I was exhausted. The final straw: I went to visit my family in another city for 2 nights. She lost her mind. When I told her I was done, she threatened to tell everyone what happened. And in my culture, that is not just petty revenge. It could ruin both our lives. For a whole year I was trapped. Every time I tried to leave, the threats resurfaced. Eventually, I gave up and said, fine, let's get married and get this over with. But even on the day our families were supposed to meet, she started losing control over some ridiculous fight and the threats started again. That was it. I snapped. I called her family, called my family, and exposed everything. The fallout was catastrophic. She was devastated, but at that point there was no way out. The shame was public, so we had to get married. I figured, well, she has nothing left to hold over me. Maybe things will be different now. Wrong. We went to Bali for our shitimoon, and it was the worst vacation of my life. She picked fights every single day. The moment we got back, after one last argument, I drove her straight to her parents' house, called a lawyer, paid her a settlement to make things go away, and ended that nightmare for good. The only good decision I made was putting my house under my mother's name before we got married, so she could not try to claim it or make the divorce more difficult. And that is how one morning of weakness led to blackmail, forced me into a marriage, dragged me through the worst honeymoon ever, and left me paying to escape. Moral of the story: never let your penis make decisions for you.